Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host Nathan P. Butler, author of A Saga on Home Video, the 3-volume second edition of which can be found on Amazon right now on Kindle, in paperback, and in hardcover. This is another of our top whatever episodes. In this case, it is another top 5 episode, and I don't know how I can top the last one, honestly. The last one was the top 5 joys of being a Star Wars home video collector. A lot of folks said it was the best video I'd ever done, which I'm not sure how I feel about. But it was a very positively received one with a lot of positive vibes to it. For this one, we're going back to a sort of more mundane topic, maybe not as an uplifting one, but we are looking at the top 5 irrationally disappointing U.S. Star Wars home video releases, at least in my mind, as I try to think about what I would consider irrational disappointments that a lot of us had at the time. Now, the key is irrational disappointments. So we're talking about things that for the most part were disappointing because people were hoping for something or expecting something that it was not ever meant to be, or something that logically would probably not have happened in the first place. Not things that are legitimately disappointing, like the nature of the bonus discs with the so-called unaltered editions that really aren't. They're the 93 versions, etc., from the bonus discs on DVD for the original trilogy in 2006 and 2008. Not that kind of thing, because that is a rational disappointment. Or the decision not to release the 3rd episode of the Yoda Chronicles in the US and jump the gun and release a DVD of only the first 2, so that when New Yoda Chronicles comes, it's the other ones, and number 3 never gets released in the US. Again, that is a rational disappointment. Having Resistance Season 1 released only on DVD, that is rational disappointment. I'm talking about instances this time where we were like, man, this sucks, or this is so disappointing, because we had an unrealistic expectation going into it. And oddly enough, most of them follow certain patterns. We're going to follow a couple of major patterns with this in relation to a particular TV show and a particular product type, though not all of them fall into those categories. We're only looking at 5. So to have 2 trends happening within a list of 5, that's kind of a big deal. So let's start out with number 5, irrationally disappointing product here. And that is this. Okay. And its ilk. This is the multi-screen edition of The Last Jedi as released through Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment when the film hit home video for the first time in 2018. This happens to be the one from Walmart that has the voodoo sticker on it, but you'll find other ones with like Movies Anywhere on there, whatever. Okay, so you may say, well, it's Last Jedi. That of course is disappointing. Because there are people out there who just hate Last Jedi. For what it's worth, by the way, if you just start spewing out fanboy film hate, instead of actually engaging on the topic specifically related to the episode, it's an easy way to get yourself hidden from channels so that nobody ever sees anything you say on the channel ever again. So hold back the fandom knee-jerk reaction bullshit, please. So, what makes this irrationally disappointing? Well, this is a Blu-ray and digital release. Blu-ray film disc, Blu-ray bonus disc, digital copy. Which these days you might say, well, yeah, that's kind of the norm. But at this time, we saw the market moving away from DVD. We saw it. We knew it was happening. We knew that some companies were ditching DVD from their releases completely. And we still kind of held out an irrational hope that when we saw Last Jedi get a release, its regular version, you might call this the regular version as opposed to DVD, its regular version would still include the DVD disc inside it, so we didn't have to get a separate DVD release or get one of those store exclusives to get it. Now, there were store exclusives that had DVD. In fact, Disney Movie Club had a version that looked exactly like this, except it also included the DVD and noted it up here. But for the regular release, the mainstream release, there was no DVD. And I say it's an irrational expectation because not, that specific one should have been the moment we were like, DVD is gone. But we should have known that was coming. Okay, DVD was on its way out. Blu-ray was the thing. 4K Ultra HD was kind of on the way to becoming a major thing. In fact, the first film for Star Wars released with the 4K release was Last Jedi. We should have known that, yes, the days of DVD on its own or packaged in with other formats were probably numbered. and seeing the trend going with the stuff going from Disney, that was kind of the direction Disney was going. And yet, still, when this was released without a DVD disc on the regular release, we were disappointed. I would say that is borderline rational, but irrational if we take the broader context of the market changes happening at the time into context, into our consideration. So, yeah, for me, number 5, the fact that DVDs stopped being included in multi-packs. When that was going to happen, that would have been an irrational expectation regardless. It was irrational almost to consider that they would still keep doing it. Therefore, irrational when we got upset about it. Number 4. Number 4 here relates to steelbooks, as will number 3. But for number 4 here, the irrational expectation happened in 2015/2016, particularly in 2016, but it's based on something from 2015. You may recall that in 2015, we saw the first steelbook releases in the United States of the individual Star Wars films at the time that had been released through 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment. So we're talking episodes 1 through 6. And they got this nice matching set. Nice is a relative term. It's kind of plain looking at it now. With a character's face, the logo, the poster art there on the back. This was sort of a standard look for episodes 1 through 6, so that you had a matching set, including the way their spines were designed. Right? Now that's 2015. That is the year that The Force Awakens hits theaters that December, but then doesn't hit home video until 2016, but that is still only a matter of months after the release of these in late 2015. So what product takes the heat as an unrealistic expectation and irrationally disappointing product? That is the Steelbook release of The Force Awakens through Best Buy when it gets its initial launch in 2016. Because, yeah, it's got a character, but it's differently posed, it's further back, it's got the lightsaber, the logo is done differently here, it's not a poster on the back, and the spine is set up differently, such that not only do they not look the same this way, they don't look the same on your shelves this way either. And the irrational aspect of this is that people were pissed. People were livid in some cases that this Steelbook didn't match the ones that came out the previous year. It's a Star Wars Steelbook. They should look the same. They should match. It's only been a matter of months. You guys suck. Except when you say, you guys suck, and expect these to match, you are working under an assumption that it's all coming from the same company, same design team, etc., etc. These were not put out by the same company. Disney-era films, Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment, until the sale of 20th Century Fox to Disney as part of the big purge of a bunch of 21st Century Fox assets, this stuff, the original 6 films, this is all being put out by 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment. And that's the way it was in 2015, with Disney then in 2016. This would have meant, in order to match these up, the kind of cooperation we didn't really see between the two companies until the following year in 2017 with those holiday reissues of some Blu-rays and DVDs that all came with that Forces of Destiny Volume 1 bonus DVD disc. But in 2016, to expect that this should have matched this from 2015 and this product line, that was an unrealistic, irrational expectation, making it an irrationally disappointing product. But it still got a lot of flack for it. That brings us to number 3, which still keeps us on the topic of steelbooks. Only this time we're going even further back. You see, in the US, the first time you could get episodes 1 through 6 in steelbook form was 2015. Prior to that, the US did not get an equivalent of what the UK saw in 2013 and other regions saw around 2013, where there were trilogy sets in steelbooks. Remember, they got the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. I got them in cases here. But they got both of those as Steelbook trilogy sets in 2013. We did not. So on the American market, there hadn't been a release of any of the live-action films in Steelbook form until 2015. But there had been a Star Wars film release in Steelbook form, just not live-action in the US, back in 2008. That was the Clone Wars, and that product in question is this. This is the Best Buy Steelbook of the Clone Wars. Kind of a nice steelbook. It didn't match the other ones either, but there was a 7-year gap, so people didn't gripe too much, apparently. It's the steelbook version. from Best Buy. Best Buy tends to be the Steelbook place in the U.S. for exclusives if you're outside the U.S. That's why I keep bringing up Best Buy here. But this is a really nice, cool little Steelbook. But it's for a DVD release, not a Blu-ray release. And therefore, when compared to the size of any other Star Wars Steelbook, it is taller. It's about as wide, but it is taller. It doesn't match. And it's not even the best format you could have gotten the film on, because the Clone Wars film was the first Star Wars film of any kind to get a Blu-ray release. It got a regular Blu-ray release, it got an exclusive Blu-ray release at Target, but at Best Buy, nope, sorry, the Steelbook is DVD only. Now, these days, looking back on it for collectors of Star Wars Steelbooks, is a pain in the ass, and it's just a frustration to have it on the shelves compared to the other ones, because it's not Blu-ray sized, it's not Blu-ray, it's the odd one out. And yes, that's not to say there weren't Blu-ray Steelbooks of the Clone Wars out there. For instance, there's this one from the Netherlands. Okay, so it existed. A little weird because it had the stuff, like built onto it instead of being a J-card or something, but there was a Clone Wars Steelbook out there for Blu-ray, just not in the United States. That became something in later years that a lot of fans were frustrated by. But again, I would argue that is an irrationally disappointing product rather than a rational one, because that was an unrealistic expectation. There was no precedent for Steelbook in the US for Star Wars releases when this came out, regardless of what company. This is Warner Home Video, a third one entering the mix here. Regardless of what we wanted to see, there was no precedent. They should have maybe taken the bet on Blu-ray, because Blu-ray is a big deal, and they were hyping up the fact it was the first Star Wars Blu-ray release. I'll grant you that, absolutely. But there wasn't a precedent to say the Steelbook should be on the Blu-ray or on the DVD. Hell, there wasn't a precedent of Star Wars Steelbooks at all. So all the disappointment about this tends to be after-the-fact stuff. It was only after we realized that all the other ones were going to wind up being Blu-ray / etc., for the higher-end formats, that this being DVD struck a nerve with collectors. Not nearly as much at the time, when people were just excited to see a Steelbook release of it at all. But to me, this is one that gets a really bad rap these days, kind of looking back on it, not because of what it is, but because of what people expected or wanted it to be, which is the definition of an irrationally disappointing product. Staying with the Clone Wars, we get to number 2, which is the Blu-ray release of the Clone Wars: The Lost Missions. Something I guess we should be happy we got at the time, because it took years for the UK to get it, and we should sort of be happy that we got it because it was something that premiered as streaming in the US through Netflix, and we at least got a home video release of it, unlike all the stuff coming from Disney+. But this is the only Clone Wars season on Blu-ray that does not include the absolutely outstanding, amazing, in-depth, crazy huge Jedi Temple Archives bonus content. Why? Why doesn't it have it? Well, because the other seasons were aired on Cartoon Network and released on home video in the US through Warner Home Video. So they had set a precedent, and they kept up with that style throughout all of their releases. Packaging changed, particularly after the first 2 seasons and doing some repackaging with them, but the format of the way that they put the discs together tended to stay relatively similar, so that we got Jedi Temple Archive stuff for all 5 of the Cartoon Network seasons. But this isn't a Cartoon Network season. This is a Netflix season, and this wasn't put out by Warner Home Video. This was Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment. As such, just like with the Steelbook stuff, you're jumping companies. You're jumping companies doing the production. We're jumping companies in terms of where it aired, who's putting it out on disc, etc., etc. It really made no sense for fans to get upset at the time that this didn't include Jedi Temple Archives. It was an unrealistic expectation to have ever even considered that it should have, because it's not the same company. So once again, despite the fact that it's got some solid bonus features, including the Crystal Crisis on Utapau story reels on here, which is really nice to have in physical form, it still tends to get crapped on from time to time as the lesser Clone Wars Blu-ray release, not because of what it is, but because this one didn't have Jedi Temple Archives and the other ones did. Yes, that's true. You shouldn't be snarky about it, because it was not Warner Home Video this time. Then lastly, number 1, what I think is sort of the most frustrating to me as a fan to see people gripe about, because it is by far one of the Star Wars releases that, to me, is the most form of irrational disappointment that we have seen. It is a product that doesn't deserve nearly the amount of crap that it gets and got when it was released, because it was all based on unrealistic expectations rather than what it really was trying to be. That is this, or I should probably say these. Notice they look identical. One is Blu-ray, one is DVD. Without the J cards, there's no way to tell from the outside. That's a rational disappointment because that's just dumb. But when we're looking at the product itself, what was the issue here? What got people riled up? Well, Clone Wars had just ended on Cartoon Network. We get this giant box set for Clone Wars. Nice. It's got an art book in it. It's got everything packaged together. It's got new labels even on the discs, so they have a uniform format, which is not something they really needed to do. Other regions, they just use the same discs with the same labels, not just the same discs, but with different labels. A nice set here. But what is it? Well, it's a Blu-ray or a DVD release. I don't even know which one this is without opening it. But it's a Blu-ray or a DVD release of seasons 1 through 5 of the Clone Wars. It is called the Clone Wars Seasons 1 through 5 Collector's Edition. It says it here, it says it there, it describes what it is on the J card for it. If you have the J card on it, you can actually tell which format the freaking thing is. It's basically all the discs from seasons 1 through 5, from those Blu-ray sets or DVD sets, given new labels to look uniform, put into one package through some different size cases in here, along with an art book and a little guide to content that tells you what's on each disc and that sort of thing, in this nice sort of shiny, as I turn it like that, nice shiny boxed set packaging here. That is all that it purported to be. Seasons 1 through 5, the Cartoon Network stuff. The Netflix stuff had not aired yet, but we knew it was coming. We just didn't know it was coming through Netflix. We just knew there was another season that was coming that was going to take some unfinished stuff and put it out in some form, finally finished. And of course, it does not include the film because it says seasons 1 through 5. And it was those two things that really kind of annoyed people irrationally at the time and later. Okay, there was an expectation. First gripe, this doesn't include the film. True, it doesn't include the film. But for the most part, what TV series home video box sets typically include the film that led into them or that maybe finished it off? Particularly if it's a theatrical film, not a TV movie type of film. I can't think of many, if any, at all. I think of something like Babylon 5. Babylon 5, the TV movies, including the pilot movie, The Gathering, show up only on a special box set that's just those movies to go with your 5 seasons. 5 seasons like in this case. Though that's not, apropos, just an interesting coincidence. You take something like, Farscape, right? Farscape. There's a crucial ending story of Farscape, which is sort of a mini-series sort of 2 TV movie type size things together called Peacekeeper Wars that finally ends the story of Farscape that was left dangling at the end of their last regular season. And it was released on home video. But unless you got a special boxed set at the time, which I believe was only at Best Buy in the particular time when I picked it up, the only way to get Peacekeeper Wars was to buy it separately. There's only one version that actually packaged it together, and it was a store-exclusive kind of thing. It just wasn't and isn't the norm for a TV series that has TV movies or a TV series that has theatrical films to package all that stuff together. Typically, a series set, if there even is a series set of a show, is going to just be the TV seasons. That was an irrational expectation on our part. People got pissed, people complained, people were wrong. On top of that, you also have the complaint, they should have waited. Because here, even if we're not talking about like waiting until season 7 came, because nobody believed there would be a season 7 at the time that this was coming out. But we knew there would be a season 6 or something to give us more episodes. Eventually, of course, it wound up on Netflix. That was this thing that we looked at a moment ago when it was released on home video. And there was the, well, they jumped the gun, because what they should have done is wait for it to air on Netflix, so there was a home video release of that one, and then put seasons 1 through 6 in a single box set. That's what they should have done. Again, that complaint made a lot at the time, especially once eventually season 6 was out, both on Netflix and then on physical media. That complaint was, again, irrational. And for the same reason we've seen before. Different companies. It doesn't matter if season 6 was on home video in relation to this. Warner Home Video the Cartoon Network seasons, the stuff they had the rights to distribute. Season 6, The Lost Missions, through Netflix, no ties to Cartoon Network, no ties to Warner Home Video, released through Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment. Different company. You wouldn't have seen at the time a Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment release that included this stuff, just like you wouldn't have seen this include this. It was a complaint that made no sense at the time. It was an irrational frustration. And I think I shared the frustration briefly before I was like, wait a second. And actually took a moment to think it through. And I was like, wow, that's a dumb complaint to have about this. That to me stands out. Actually, it's that is the reason why this top 5 exists. Because I was thinking about top 5 topics and my eyes ran across this. I was like, you know what? We need one on the irrational complaints that fans often have about home video releases that don't take logic into account, so that we get upset over something we really shouldn't have. Because we do that plenty of times. So this, to me, that is the pinnacle there. At number 1, the Seasons 1 through 5 Collector's Edition set for the Clone Wars as the top irrationally disappointing Star Wars home video release in the United States. There are others outside the U.S. I'm sure we'll look at maybe at some point if I can compile a list, but in the U.S., these are the ones that stand out to me. I'm curious if there are others that stand out to you. Feel free to put them in the comments. Just remember, we're trying to think about ones that are irrationally disappointing, not rationally disappointing, and sometimes that's a fine line. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers, who hopefully are not irrationally disappointed in this episode, after all the praise for the last one. I did my best.